The global food ecosystem faces huge and immediate challenges. 26% of global greenhouse gas emissions are generated by food production alone, with this likely to increase as the global population climbs to an estimated 9 billion by 2050. Global access to food is also uneven, with developed countries generally having much more food than required, while people in developing countries grapple with food shortages and malnutrition. These discrepancies in access have led to findings that we waste $2.6 trillion worth of food globally each year. These are difficult, multifaceted issues, but agri-food innovation might hold the key to helping us surmount some of these challenges. This is the Digital Feed. My name is Benny, Assistant Director of Venture Investing here at SGInnovate, and I have the immense privilege of having two agri-food industry veterans with me today on this episode of the Digital Feed as we look at open innovation in shaping a sustainable future of food. Dominique, Alex, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. Before we dive into today's questions, today's episode, perhaps if you could introduce yourself and the organizations that you represent. Maybe we start with Alex.
So let me paint a picture for you to introduce the company with Givaudan. You wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you have a shower, you wash your body, you wash your hair, you walk down to the kitchen, you make a cup of 3-in-1 coffee, you spread some butter, maybe some jam on a piece of bread, you grab a snack bar, you grab a bag of chips for your mid-morning snack, and you leave the house. You've probably interacted with between 8 or 10 Givaudan products already in your morning routine. So as a company, we create taste and smell experiences. We have a taste and well-being division. We have a fragrance and beauty division. And it's a responsibility that we take really seriously because we touch consumers' lives every day, often. And taste and smell is hugely linked to emotion and happiness and well-being. And that's the industry that we work in. So it's super creative. It's grounded in science. And I lead the regional innovation team for the Taste and Wellbeing division in Asia.
Okay, thank you very much. And Dominique?
Morning, Benny. Thanks for having us. I'm Dominique Kull, Head of Innovation and Technology at Buhler Southeast Asia. Buhler is a process supplier into the food and mobility industry. And as much as you interact with Givaudan's product on taste, you probably also eat a lot of products which were manufactured and processed on our equipment. So we analyzed and see that we probably contribute to feed 2 billion people every day and move 1 billion people every day. And therefore, we have a significant part in the food industry, which makes us very proud, but it also comes with a lot of responsibility when we talk about the agri-industry and the impact it has.
Thank you very much. And you know, looking at the large numbers of people that you feed and you move and the responsibility that you just mentioned, I think it segues very nicely into my first question. In our preamble this morning, with agri-food production, agri-food, the whole global supply chain, we face many issues. We've got emissions contributing to climate change, we've got food wastage, we've got issues around access to food. Could you share with the audience today what are the initiatives that Buhler and Givaudan are embarking on to improve on sustainability, particularly in relation to food? Maybe we can start with you, Dominique.
So Buhler Supply Solution, we call it from the field to the fork. And therefore, we set a clear target for us to reduce waste, energy and water by 50%. But not only on our company, but in our customer supply chain with solution we provide. We have worked on a lot of different solutions. Maybe one sample from a different area in the world, where in Mexico we use corn and make nixtamalization, which used to be a process which used tremendous amount of water. We found solutions where we can reduce the water by 80%.
Wow.
Other things are, for example, the meat industry has a huge impact on the environment. Therefore, we work on solutions for meat alternatives to come up that meat alternatives that not only are good for the environment, but are also good for the people and obviously need to be tasty.
Wonderful. And Alex, what about Givaudan?
So for Givaudan, we were one of the first companies to sign the United Nations pledge to commit to a 1.5 degrees Celsius ambition by 2050. We're also on a quest starting just the beginning of this year to become B Corp certified, which means that we have to hold the entire company to the highest level of responsible business practice and sustainable business practice. And we're also an active participant in the United Nations Global Compact, which is a way of working towards driving these sustainability goals by 2030 around zero hunger, health and well-being, and so on. And the other sustainability goal we've been talking about is this one, the number 17, I think, around partnering to deliver on the goals, which is exactly what we're trying to do here in Singapore.
Wonderful. And it's great that you ended off on partnering, because I think this was announced last year, and we're going to see the opening of this Protein Innovation Center here in Singapore at the Givaudan office in Woodlands, if I'm not wrong. It's great news. We also understand that it's built around plant-based proteins. Could you share with us why plant-based proteins, why plant-based food, and why Singapore? Alex?
Sure. We see Singapore as a hotbed of innovation for food, technology as a whole, but more specifically, the alternative protein, plant-based proteins, cell-based proteins. There's a significant amount of interest. We have a very friendly government towards initiatives like this. There's a lot of investment. There are tech accelerators, food tech accelerators bringing money in. It's a great place for companies to get investment. There's a huge network of ingredient suppliers headquartered here. So all the parts of that ecosystem are ready to be put together, ready to come together to make an environment and a place now in the center for companies to innovate and to test new ingredients, to come up with different alternatives for creating food experiences for consumers. So all of that coming together gave us a lot of confidence to make the investments that we've been making here in Singapore. And you had an experience in a food court recently.
Yeah. So, I always say here in Singapore, it's a hotbed of different culinary options you have, and it's like a trip around the world. Sometimes, if you go through a food court, if you want to eat in Singapore, any food from around the world, you can find it. If you walk through a nice food court, you see all different Asian dishes from Korea, India, Thailand, Vietnam, and this just gives such a variety on a test bed to help that also then later to get it around Asia. And I think on the partnership with Givaudan, Singapore is an add-on of a longer term partnership we have. The two companies together, we have had very interesting collaborations, starting first we both headquartered in Switzerland. Yep. And when the two companies saw what Singapore is doing for the plant-based space, for food innovations, it was clear that we want to be part of it and we want to contribute with it. And therefore, we decided to build up this Protein Innovation Center where we have a clear focus for meat alternatives. And if you look today on the market, a lot of meat alternatives come in a format which is a Western format. And the target definitely is to change that for Asia, in Asia, with our Protein Innovation Center, that we see lots and lots more of Asian formats for plant-based.
Wonderful. Looking forward to all the good things that will come out of the center. But take us back a little bit in history. What sparked this partnership between Buhler and Givaudan in the first place?
It started really about 7 or 8 years ago at the very top of the organizations, discussing what the future of food needed to be and how the companies could collaborate to deliver that. So there's been a strong partnership at that level for a significant amount of time. And there have been investments in labs where we use Buhler equipment. We have product developers, chefs from Givaudan collaborating, and we've been active in this alternative protein space for the last 7 or 8 years. And as a result, we've been able to develop ingredients and technologies and systems and processes using Buhler equipment to deliver really first-class new product development. And so when we looked at the capabilities that are currently available in Southeast Asia and across the Asia region, that we found gaps. The same capabilities that have started really driving this industry in North America and Europe weren't here. And we didn't think that was very, a great situation. So we thought, what can we do about it? And that sparked conversations to design a center here in Singapore. Dominique and I sat down one day, we had a meeting with our bosses, and we came up with this idea to create this center. We walked upstairs into the Givaudan factory where we have some space, and the idea was born, conceptualized. We discussed at a high level what it would take to make it successful, and we get the keys to this facility in 2 weeks' time. I mean, it's an amazing success story of two companies having a shared vision, and having that come to reality in what is probably actually a very short space of time, maybe 18 months. So it's part of now a bigger network. We have a global ecosystem of equipment manufacturers, of ingredient suppliers, of culinary experts, of new product development experts, extrusion experts, and this center in Singapore is the latest development within that global ecosystem. So we're really going to change the ability of companies here to develop the future of food with alternative proteins. It's super exciting.
Well, I feel excited just hearing about it. Looking very much forward to it.
Maybe to add on, as Alex mentioned, the collaboration between Buhler and Givaudan started several years ago, and there are programs like in Europe like Mass Challenge or EIT, where both companies have been involved. And when we started talking here, we said, how can we convince our headquarters to come over to Singapore? Because we saw that big movement here with Singapore establishing the 30 by 30 strategy, and we said, how can we convince them to come over? In the end, it was not much convincing needed. They really quickly saw the potential here in Singapore and bring that program over. And I think the great thing for us is we can leverage the global know-how from both companies, but with a local taste. And afterwards, that it's a give and take. The information will flow in both directions. So we don't have to start from scratch. We leverage the global know-how from two leaders in their space.
Wonderful. And Alex, earlier you spoke about how the center fills a gap within Southeast Asia. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the global context, tell us a bit more about the capabilities that the center offers and what sets it apart from other centers around the world or other efforts around the world.
Sure. So in the design, we were lucky. We had a blank sheet of paper. We had a huge empty space to design this center. So we have a state-of-the-art development kitchen with a reception area and a meeting area with a full wall, floor-to-ceiling glass panels. And behind those glass panels, we have the extruder room on full show in all its Buhler glory. And the idea is that we can have raw materials coming in and do like, for example, soy powder, pea powder, it might be chickpea powder, and do every stage of the process to transform that from a bag of soy powder into a dish of plant-based satay, for example. And we have all of the experts available in that center. We can do the product development, we can do the ingredient selection, we can do the extrusion, we can flavor it pre-extrusion, we can flavor it post-extrusion, we can work with the experts to texturize it in a way that we need for that protein type. We can pack it and freeze it, and then we have this amazing kitchen in the middle where we can post-process it, we can cook it. The whole center, in order to fit in with this global network, is digitally enabled. So we've got state-of-the-art cameras, audio equipment, so that we can do virtual tours, we can do virtual product development sessions, virtual extrusion training sessions, all in one space. And because this sits within the bigger Givaudan facility, which has been there since 1995, we have all of these peripheral services as well, like sensory and regulatory and analytical. So if, for example, we want to bring in a dish, a meat dish, and we want to capture the volatile aromas from that as we cook it, and then analyze it to see what sorts of flavors we have to create that we can then use in a plant-based version of that dish to give that same authentic experience that consumers really crave. We can do that in this center as well. So really, it stands apart from other centers of this kind because we've got the extrusion equipment, we've got all of the product development equipment, and all of the expertise that we need in one place.
Wow, I'm salivating already. Dominique?
For me, this is really a world first. I have not seen that. I mean, Buhler runs application centers around the world. Givaudan runs application centers around the world. There are other companies who run application centers around the world. But such a center as the Protein Innovation Center we build here, where you have, I always call it the 360 degree, because it comes from the powder, from the raw material, till the finished product cooked there. So imagine you're a startup, you're an established company, you have some expertise, you come to that center, then we work together on how can something be texturized, what mixture is the best to texturize it in regards to get the best texture, but also in regards of getting then the best taste, working with experts on all different fields. We are looking now to get also the capability in to make different cuts of the protein. And then not only that, you bring in your chef and you cook your dish. And it can happen. You have done everything right, then you cook it, and something is not right. We just do it again. So we have a very, very short iteration loops, and I think that's essential to have fast product development, because before you maybe tried somewhere the texturing, you tried somewhere how to marinate it, how to get the right flavors in, and then you brought it to a kitchen and you realize, oh, there is something wrong. You start all over again. This is now all in one center, 360, and you work with all expertise together. So for me, it's a world first what I've seen.
Now, the center has been called, a place for open innovation, and you've alluded to that quite a bit, both of you, in terms of the different stakeholders that you can bring to the fore. But why open innovation, and what are your respective companies' views on open innovation as a concept?
I mean, for me, if you look in the industry we are in the past, R&D and innovation was done behind closed doors. But it's possible, but the world has become more complex and the world has become faster. If you want to be time to market today, new products have to come out, you just have to become faster. And to be fast, you have to have the right expertise in, you have to be open, you have to openly talk to each other and bring everyone in, have these short innovation loops as we have on the Protein Innovation Center that will speed up your product development tremendously, and therefore you're faster on the market, it helps to develop. The industry as it used to be, the way from a product idea till you're on the market would not be possible today anymore. So that's where I see open innovation is the way to go, and helping the companies. Sure, you need to have the right framework in place with clear who brings in which IP, how you work together, but then that everyone feels safe, then you get results, unbelievable better results, and in a much shorter time.
Yeah, you mentioned safe, which is, I think, an important point. And people feel safe when there's trust. And I think we want to create an environment where people can be open. One of the best examples I have of open innovation is where this trust was in place with a company, I can't mention names, but a company that wanted to break into a new category they were unfamiliar with, but knew from a consumer need perspective there was something there that they thought they could fill. And they came to us and we designed a process, and for me open innovation is all about this iterative process to bring agility and fast prototyping, but there's a step before that which is identifying what the idea is, what the concept is. And open innovation at its finest, based on my experience, is where the two companies come together and really share their knowledge, share their insights, and then based on that insight, you can create an idea, you can create a concept, And then if you can develop a prototype of that very quickly, it's fantastic. The other part which has made it successful quickly is when the decision makers are part of that process. And you can include the decision makers sort of part of that iterative process, so you can get their feedback, because otherwise a lot of innovation timelines span out because of the approval process at the end. And so if you can include those decision makers as part of that, you will get the speed to market much quicker. And in this case, where we really shared, we ideated, we developed a concept, we did prototypes, we got the approvals, we even ran some consumer tests, all within the space of 3 days. And 6 months later, the product was developed and on the market. Wow. Which is, I think, especially for large FMCG companies, like lightning fast. Yeah, for a startup, maybe, or an SME, maybe they can do it like that all the time. But I think that's one example.
And I think when you mentioned that there are some differences between startups and bigger FMCG companies, but for both, I see a big value to go towards open innovation, because a startup has tremendous speed, but they have a higher lack on the expert. They cannot be an expert on everything. Yeah. And when coming to such an open innovation space, they will gain a lot of know-how by tapping into that knowledge. Bigger FMCG companies, they have a lot of their know-how, but such a space helps to accelerate the whole thing to become faster into the market.
Great points, great points. So we looked at trust, we looked at bringing decision makers into the loop as early as possible as two of the things that we need to see open innovation succeed. What other factors are there that you believe that would be required so that open innovation succeeds? Are these ingredients that we can try and promote more of in Singapore? What are your thoughts on this?
I think the ingredient part is important. The speed and agility can be enhanced when you know what ingredients you want to use. You know, if a customer would come to us with just an idea, it's going to be a longer process, because we need to use our raw materials, or maybe from our network ecosystem of ingredient suppliers, their raw materials, and develop that. And when people come into the center, we have starting points for all of the different protein types, but whether that fits with their idea of what they want or not. So if people can come with ingredient sources, it's fantastic. You know, we have another example where a company's come to us, say, we have the protein, but we just don't really know what we can do with it. And we welcome people like that. Come on in, we can show you, we can work with you, and we can do it as quickly as possible. So I think access to ingredients is important. But then once we've scaled it up in our facility to commercialize it at a high volume, then manufacturing plants, OEMs, that's really a gap in Asia at the moment. There aren't many that can do it consistently. You shared a story with me once about startups thinking they have a great idea, they can make 200 kilos in their kitchen, maybe in a scale-up facility, but don't understand the complexity of taking that to a full-scale commercial with good manufacturing practices, with halal certification, with all of the regulatory compliance, market by market, which is different. So I think early stage companies really need to put the time in to understand the commercialization part as well as the product development part.
I think, as Alex mentioned, I think one big ingredient for open innovation is to have the ecosystem. And this is not only companies, but also the facilities around that people can innovate and give them access to. Because not every company, a startup cannot afford to have a lab, have a manufacturing facility, have access to all the expertise. So, but there, I must say, Singapore did a fantastic job. And if I see 5 years ago, there was not much talk about food innovation. And if I see what's around today, there are accelerator programs like Big Idea Ventures are here, and many others. There is now Protein Innovation Center coming up. So the infrastructure is built and it's growing, and we see more and more coming into Singapore. And I think that's what are the ingredients needed for open innovation. Now, I think it's also a mindset change for companies. Many companies changed already. Startups are anyway doing that because they cannot run fast enough when they are not open. Some traditional companies, it's still something new because they were used to do everything by themselves and they're scared. But I think they will also learn with the ecosystem driving, either they jump on the train or they will be stuck a bit to bring new products into the market. So I think so far Singapore has done a tremendous job to bring all that in place. It's now about the individuals and about the companies to really embrace it and make use of all that facilities.
I think these are all great points. I think the point that you made as well, Dominique, about traditional companies, having to look at this and try and jump on the bandwagon as well, are great points. The focus tends to be on startups, but the traditional companies in food also need to perhaps look at this as an opportunity to jump into agri-food innovation as well. So great points. Just coming to what would it be, how would you consider this center to be a success? Are there some metrics that you look at? Are these qualitative or quantitative metrics?
For me, one point of success is how many people we can educate it in regards of plant-based meat alternatives. And for me, it's not necessarily only people who will run such a facility, but it's also that we can run training courses where chefs can come in, that they learn how to cook with plant-based, that they understand the whole process of it and can more use it and have more willingness of using alternative proteins, and therefore the market is growing. So that's one matrix for me, how many people do we educate in a center. And then a second point is innovation is only innovation when it really is accepted in the market. And one matrix for me is when in a year's time, when Alex and I go shopping in Singapore, then we see a lot of products. How many products do we see in the shelf developed in Singapore for Singapore and for Southeast Asia? I think the amount of products in the shelves developed in the Protein Innovation Center is for me a matrix.
I'll add one thing to that, which is breakthroughs in ingredients, maybe protein sources. And we know a lot about soy, we know a lot about pea, but there are a lot more sort of indigenous grains and pulses, which we don't know the full potential of yet. So maybe millets or lentils or chickpeas are getting a lot of attention now. What opportunities do they bring? And so breakthroughs in ingredients are important, but then also breakthroughs in nutrition and taste as well. A lot of people say a lot of these alternative protein products are highly processed. And if you look at the ingredient listing of one of the early ones, maybe there's 40 ingredients. You look at the ingredient listing of the current ones that are launching very soon, there's 8 ingredients. So already there's been breakthroughs in terms of the complexity of the ingredient listing. But if you look at these as an alternative to animal protein, they are lower in fat, they're lower in cholesterol, they're healthier for you. If we can manage the nutritional content of fat, salt, sugar, and we have we don't have this cholesterol issue for it, then we are dealing with a more nutritious alternative that still tastes the same and gives the same cooking experience as people want from meat. So our target is not all the vegans and vegetarians. It's people that have a wide spectrum of diet and to give them an alternative.
Wonderful. I'd definitely be one of the first to sign up for a healthier diet for sure. Great points as well. I think if we could encapsulate some of the points that you mentioned, the training of talent, the creation of new products, the creation of new IP, those are some of the things that you're looking at. And potentially these are also applicable to other open innovation efforts in other areas as well.
Maybe one last point to add. I think what is also interesting here in Singapore and what we see as will be a success is to have new sources of proteins coming in, is working closely together with research institutes where they probably in the lab tried something to say, but can it be commercialized? Can it be scaled up? And then it's a perfect facility to come and see how can it be scaled up and make proof of concept. Is it even worth it to try, or what do we have to tweak to make it able to scale it up?
Actually, on that note, about having people come in and try that, what are ways in which outside organizations, be they research institutes or companies, startups, how can they reach out to the center? What kind of profiles should they fit before they're a great partner for the center? Dominique, Alex?
We are open, and we've said from the very beginning, we're open to companies, to researchers, and to startups. The facility is able to do early stage product development through to high volume scale up to 50 kilos an hour on the extruder. So companies that have a strong idea and are committed to developing it, because would be good. Startups that have a minimum viable product, good funding that can come in and rent the facility, and we do charge a fee for the facility, ranging between $1,500 and $2,500 a day, Singapore dollars a day. And we want people to come in there who are very serious about product development. And so people that fit any of those bills, it could be large corporations, it could be well-funded startups with a good minimum viable product, are very welcome.
I think as you can hear from Alex, we have not set like a catalog. We said somebody has to have this. Yeah. Because many things will develop over the years as well, and that's why when it comes to I would say in general, if a company or a research institute has a question on can we texturize something, can we mask a certain taste, can we develop such a product, which can be completely new, which we don't have in our minds yet. So it's best thing, first approach us, and then we can discuss a way to work together. I think rather than saying, oh, I don't tick this box, I'm not reaching out. No, please reach out, and we look at it together, and we see certainly there are some limitations on processing capabilities, or that doesn't fit in, but don't shy away, reach out to us, and we can discuss them.
The fee that we charge for the Protein Innovation Center is when the extruder needs to be used. Sure. We can do significant amount of work with companies without the extruder, having to engage the extruder. The labs are really quite significant, and we have all of our existing labs there too. So we can talk to anybody about food and beverage product development, nutritional product development in the center. I think we would also like to encourage companies that feel they can add value to the processing capabilities, to the ingredient network that we have, to approach us as well. Because we have agreements with protein suppliers, oil and fat suppliers, nutritional ingredient suppliers. But if somebody thinks they can add something unique to that, from an ingredient ecosystem perspective, then definitely get in touch with us, or other equipment manufacturers.
Exactly. I mean, we also talked about an idea we are conceptualizing right now is to have some startup weeks, for example, where we can bring in, additionally to the expertise from Givaudan and Buhler, other experts from, is it raw material or further downstream equipment, oil and fat suppliers, that becomes like a full pool of all the expertise to, I call it on like startups on steroid. You really can help them to develop a product within 2-3 days and then go to market testing. So it's not only for companies who want to use the center, also companies who can see they can add some value to it. Please reach out to us, and we can see how we find ways to work together.
So we really want to support the local scene in Singapore. It's growing so fast, it's super dynamic. There are so many companies coming into the scene every day. And if they need somewhere to explore their ideas and eventually, hopefully, scale up those ideas into reality, then the doors are open.
Wonderful. And on that note, who should they contact? How can they reach out?
Dominic and myself.
Yep.
Well, there you have it, folks. Yeah, you can reach out straight to Dominic, straight to Alex. If you've got any questions, any interest in joining the Protein Innovation Center, due to open in April, set up by our partners here at Givaudan and Buhler. And on that note, thank you very much for joining us today, Dominique, Alex, on this episode of the Digital Feed. It's been an immense pleasure having you today.
Thank you, Benny.
Thank you, Benny, for having us.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of the Digital Feed. For more episodes, please check out our YouTube page and our other social media channels.